Hello, this is English Shorthand channel and the shorthand dictation speed is 100 words per minute, which is very helpful for all types of governmental competitive exam. 5 seconds. Ready? Start. I have hesitated to intervene in this debate because I wanted honorable members to have as much time as possible to discuss this most important matter. Later, my colleague, the finance minister, gave a very lucid analysis of the situation yesterday and made clear the basic policy of the government, but also on behalf of the planning commission, and he spoke with authority since he has a great deal to do with the burdens of both. Yet I want to say a few words because recently there has been some confusion in the public mind and many things have been said which appear to me to have no justification whatever. Various reports have appeared in newspapers leading the public to imagine things that did not exist. I wish to clear the confusion as far as possible. The honorable member who asked me earlier in this session whether there would be a debate on food policy was probably under the impression that some big chances were under consideration. As a matter of fact, a change in policy was neither intended nor suggested. Certain minor changes are certainly contemplated, but they have nothing to do with the basic policy that the government has attempted to follow and intends to pursue in future. I am sure the House will realize that during the last few years the food ministry has had to face very difficult problem. The government and the cabinet have of course shared to some extent in carrying the burdens of the food ministry, but the person who was ultimately responsible was the food minister in office. I am not denying that we have made mistakes, but we have also endeavored to profit by them. It must be considered that the food situation in the country, which was difficult for a long time, has not considerably eased, although other factors have contributed to the improvement. I think we are justified in saying that the present favorable situation is, to some extent, the result of government policy also. In this connection, I should like to pay tribute to my colleague, the food minister, who has approached the very difficult and complicated subject of food with an energy and an awareness which I think have produced certain positive results all over the country. The House has already had a fair dose of figures and details, so I shall not go into them, but it is essential that we do not miss the wood for the trees. In a debate of this kind, it is natural that honorable members should be more concerned with the situation in their particular state or area, and it is right that they should do so. Nevertheless, the most important thing is that we keep in view India and her food problem as a whole and remember our basic policy. It is open to the House to discuss our basic policy, but insofar as the government is concerned, there has been no occasion to effect any change in it, and as far as we can see, no such occasion is likely to arise. I can only add that our basic approach will remain unchanged, even though the food position is much brighter. The finance minister pointed out the close relationship between the food question and planning. Planning is a kind of housekeeping for the nation. The fact that we are now better off in many respects does not mean that we should leave the nation's housekeeping to random forces. What we should do is to modify and improve our methods of housekeeping if we find that they are inadequate. But in regard to the supply of food and other necessaries of life, it is not enough merely to see that there is fair distribution or that people do not prosper at the cost of others. If we do this and no more, our economy will remain static. We must also see that we get the best out of our development and planning programs. For instance, if there is a surplus of food in the country, we should naturally like the nation to be fed more adequately, but we must also think beyond the immediate wants of the present and utilize our resources with foresight. There is, for instance, a pressing need for development in the country. We should really be thinking in terms of eventually exporting some of our surplus food so that we can increase our capacity for importing essential goods like heavy machinery. Perhaps the House remember that about 20 years ago a phrase became rather notorious in Germany: guns versus batters. In those days, Nazi Germany preferred guns to butter. Her people gladly went without butter so that they could export it and get guns for the money thus earned. Of course, we are not interested in guns in the same way, nor are we going to give up butter for guns. We might, however, have to give up butter for something more useful to us in our economic development. Even though we possess all the necessaries of life, we must learn to tighten our belts in order to get the things we do not immediately want but which are vital for future growth.